Well, I think it's great the martial arts work that you're doing with kids. I learned a little bit about it, and we didn't have much of that kind of thing when I was a kid. I grew up in a small town, but my kids are all black belt through Taekwondo. They went through YS Rowe, Master Rowe. I don't think he's doing it anymore.
Young Chul Rowe is either his brother or his cousin. I don't remember exactly.
I can't remember, but I do remember. I thought it was his brother, but
it might be. So my grandmaster, Sun Yu Kim, and Young Chul Rowe came to the United States together.
From Korea?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
From Korea. Their original school was in St. Peter's back... I've been in Taekwondo 32 years, so 40-something years ago.
Wow.
And then I had started, from what I understand the timeline, not too far after they had split. And then some friends of mine came up under YS Rowe.
Oh, okay.
Because he had the Chesterfield Mall School, and then I think one off
before
Manchester.
It was off Clayton.
Clayton before that? Okay.
Yeah. That's where my kids went. But it was a great opportunity for kids to gain confidence, and he was really passionate about
that he was a really good dude,
which was really neat to see. But.
Well, in martial arts, everybody's starting to figure out too now that it's not just fighting. A lot of your counselors, a lot of your doctors, different things are finding that the discipline, the structure, and stuff, and a lot of schools, martial arts schools, have figured out too that you're not selling people front snap kicks. You're helping build their character and do different things.
And confidence,
yes,
right? And progression toward a goal.
Yes,
and having that growth mindset, which I think the more we can have those kind of opportunities for kids it's a mental discipline that you develop, and I think it fills a need. That's for sure.
Well, and it helps too. Like I tell the parents, now you have a second person to help. I've worked closely, if the parents sign off on the proper forms, with so many different teachers, counselors, and stuff in the district that have reached out and said, hey, the parents said we could call you. I'm like, great, what can I do? And, or maybe they're at the school, or it's not like it was when I was a kid. I started 32 years ago. There was I think there was one other kid in my grade that did martial. Like I was the odd duck. I was the guy that's like, oh, that guy, you do karate. Like that was a weird thing. Made fun of, picked on for it, whatever. Now these kids, I was like, you guys, like it's so common. We talked on an episode recently that Allstate, or one of the new insurance companies, they have a commercial, and the kid's playing baseball, kid's playing soccer, a kid comes down in martial arts uniform, and I was like, that's a huge win for us. That's big.
Yeah, I love it. I love it that it teaches kids attention to detail. It teaches them about high standards and excellence and working toward those kinds of things. And it's also great to see, I think, other influences. My youngest son played lacrosse. I would have never had access to something like that. Yeah. But it opens up their ability to find a niche, a connection. So martial arts can be that thing, for them. And my other son did junior ROTC, and that was kind of his
that's awesome.
his group. And I think what our kids need is a home to find, and a group of people to find that they have similar interests and things like that. So I just noticed a little bit about that. I wanted to ask you about it.
Cool. And I get people too that come in and, this child wants to do it. The other two, I think they're going to take some off. And I'm like, and they're very apologetic. I'm like, no, they've got to find their thing. I was like, very rarely will an entire family stay. Everybody has a different thing. They need to find what is their thing. Well, sure. And one of the cool things about our structure is we do multiple different things inside the martial arts. So even I explained to a lot of my students when they start competing and doing things, I was like, you're gonna go through phases where you're like, oh, I like traditional straight forms. You're gonna get into the musical stuff. Maybe you get really heavily into a certain weapon, or maybe this year you just like to spar, you just like to fight.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, I don't know. And now that it's been like 4 or 5 years later, a couple of them are like, you were right. Like, I was like, yeah, you're gonna get bored with a certain thing and want a different challenge. And it allows that. And it allows I tease all the kids at the school. We had a thing this weekend. I said, do your teachers tell you to stand up and make a ton of noise? And they're like, no. I was like,
especially in the hallways.
Yeah. I was like, does mom and dad tell you guys, hey, I wish you'd make more noise and kick things around the house? No. I was like, that's why I'm cool. I tell you to make more noise and kick stuff here. And they're like, yeah, you do.
There's something to that.
It gets it out of their system.
You're being expressive, but you're also getting it out of your system. I'm a musician, and a lot of people don't know that, but I get to sub in high-level groups. I've subbed in the St. Louis Symphony and places like that. And when I'm a trombone player, so when I go to play like a big orchestral setting. I'm in the back and I get to play as loud as I can. And there's something to that. It's something about, saying this is my voice.
Yes.
And I'm here and I'm part of a group and we're together saying something. And it's kind of a cool thing.
I've always wondered that too, when I meet people that don't have that, how much that affects them.
Sure,
I'm like, have you ever thought of is there something that you're really into?
Things can get bottled up.
Yeah. I feel, and I've always had a hobby or an outlet. Part of it's being ADHD, always got that hyper focus on something. So I always wonder that when my wife and I've had that talk. I'm like, do you want to, like a hobby she's found working out, really big thing. She loves doing it. Great.
Outlet.
Cool.
Sure.
Everybody needs an outlet, but it's one of those things. If I do meet someone that does not have one, it's even if it's video games, I'm not a huge fan of video games, but if you can control it, it doesn't eat up everything in your life. But if you have that outlet, I have friends that are super successful and that's their thing at night. They play a little video game.
They meet people from all over the place.
Yes, yeah. I didn't even realize that. I'm not a gamer at all.
I'm not either. My son tells me he's got all these friends all over the place.
All over the world, yeah. That's wild.
I think it's all great, but as long as there's limitations and there's balance in it. But it's great to learn how to get along with other people and connect.
Awesome. So I want to go ahead and start for anyone that doesn't know. You're new to our district, correct? You're our new superintendent. So if you kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about it. I would appreciate that.
Well, this is, believe it or not, my 31st year in education, but my first year as superintendent in Troy. Last 7 years, I was superintendent just up the road here in Bowling Green.
Oh, awesome.
So got to be their superintendent for 7 years. And then before that, I had raised my kids kind of in the Wildwood area, St. Louis County, West County over there. And I worked in the Rockwood district for a large part of my administrative career. So I was a curriculum coordinator, and became the director of curriculum for the whole district, K through 12, all content areas. But I've been 31 years, but half of that time was as a teacher. I'm one that was really passionate about teaching and found myself in that world. And a lot of people that move into administration do so after maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years of teaching. But I was just passionate about teaching.
That's awesome.
I love helping. I was a band teacher, so it was kind of fun too. So I got to do some neat things with that. But my parents were teachers, and my grandparents were teachers. So I fought being a teacher. I didn't want to be a teacher.
Well, I was just about to ask that. Yeah, did you? Because normally after like that third generation, people are like,
my daughter's a fourth generation music teacher, so I didn't succeed at breaking the. But I started as an engineering major in college actually, and I saw my friends were having a lot more fun in music classes than I was having in calculus. I enjoyed calculus. I enjoyed the whole kind of the mindset with that, but just found that it met my interests, and so I've enjoyed being involved in schools and serving others, and service is a big part of me.
That's awesome.
I also did 25 years in the military, most of it within the Guard and Reserves, but it's kind of been a thing in our family. Well, it's my pleasure, but it's been a thing in our family. My dad, served, and both my grandparents, my great grandfather. You go back every generation, we have examples of service going back to the Revolutionary War. And both of my boys are right now are lieutenants in the Army. So I feel like it's something helping others. It's kind of my mission in life. It's kind of where I find purpose, and it seems like those in my family have found the same thing. And education and with the military have been two places where that's been good. But this community has been very, very gracious and welcoming, and I've been very, very excited about the work here. And of course, Mark Penny did a great job as superintendent. He's been very helpful through my transition. It's been nice to be so close in Bowling Green, not being too far away. So last year I was coming down several days a week just to get acclimated, and people have been, like I say, very welcoming. And this team that I get to work with is just fantastic. I've just had a great transition. That's awesome. We have a great school district, and I know not all communities get that. Sure. I've dove into this on the podcast with people before, but the accessibility to the school district, the way they're willing to work with everyone is second to none. And it's amazing how much the school district is involved in things. I grew up in O'Fallon. I don't remember the Zumwalt district being, or any of the staff, and I may be wrong on this, but being as involved as you guys are. It's wild. What I love about this particular community, it's kind of got the bests of both worlds. It has kind of that small town feeling a little bit, and it has some of the benefits that you get in larger communities that smaller communities don't have. Resources, I guess there's so many different pieces that come with a little bit larger communities. So it's not too big. But people still, I think, have that ability to know about each other and support each other. Community groups really come together when there's a need.
Yes.
And that's something that I've really seen already. And it's been fun to be a part of that for sure.
Yeah. Whenever I do anything with other martial arts schools, and we'll be talking numbers or communities and different things, like I'll tell them different things we do, different ways we support. And if they're in more of a metropolitan area or larger area, you know, they'll look at the size of the school, things we do, like how I'm like, well, because I know someone will go on Google Troy, Missouri, and they're like, those numbers look off. I'm like, well, it's not
Sure.
it. We all work together. You know, we support Winfield, we support but trying to explain that to people from the outside, that it's a small area with, you know, it's a larger area, but still has a small town feel.
Sure. When I was in Bowling Green, I used to hear stories about that school in Troy being competitors. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, both high schools were about the same size back then. Of course, Troy has seen humongous growth through the last couple of decades. But I think when you grow that fast, you still hold on to some of those smaller town characteristics.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of just taking care of I use the word the least of these, and being aware of the needs that are out there, but wrapping around the school in a way that brings support and encouragement, and realizes that the school is a big part of the town, a big part of the community, and so we all work together to help our kids. And it's been fun just to see that in place here.
Well, and I don't think people even realize everything that goes on, and I didn't either until I started working with the district on different things and found out about Bright Futures and Buddy Bags and so many different programs that school district doesn't have to partner on any of that. Like you guys could, your goals, grades, and students, and that there's other things that are involved there that are not necessary. Or I know so many people in the community that will work either as a para or something within the school districts that you probably don't see in larger areas, or that type of a necessity, that caring to really do something for everyone that's local.
I have a really good example of that. Right after I started, maybe a couple of months, maybe we were into August, about the start of school, and Bright Futures was going to help work with the library, the Powell Library, to host an event for people to come if they needed help with school supplies.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so they budgeted for a certain amount of money for that. And I thought, well, I just transferred my membership to the local VFW and the local American Legion, starting to meet some of those folks, and went to them and visited with them about what we were trying to do. And it was just amazing to see the local VFW, the VFW Auxiliary, the American Legion, the Legion Riders. They all came and contributed money. And all of a sudden, we had 5 times the amount of money for this project. And so we were able to meet every need of these kids that had come. And so part of my work, I want to try to remove roadblocks to kids. All of us come with different characteristics, different maybe skills, but also different sets of resources. And if we can remove roadblocks for kids, that just was very encouraging to me. And that's what's unique about a community like this. There wasn't hardly anything that had to be said except for what was happening, and people wanted to be a part of it, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot out here. Like anytime there is something like that comes up, the overwhelming response of people to give back and to help support, because they're basically supporting their neighbors, and we all know if you just want to be the one climbing up and going forward, but no one else around you it's not the same.
I think as a general rule, all of us have compassion and empathy for others, and some of us have to dig a little bit more to find it than others sometimes. But I think it's a characteristic that is in us, and I think the more that we can focus on what good can come out of that kind of thing, I think we're better off for it. The school is a great place where we're surrounded by people who are obviously there for wanting to give back. They're obviously not there for financial reasons or gain and those kinds of things, but they're there because they want to give back. And it's a great place to be kind of a hub, to partner with community and supporting the needs of our families and our kids. And so, in a district like this, you have those different groups around town, a little bit more than you might find in even a smaller community, but you still have some of that idea that we're one. We take care of each other. We have each other's back here, and that's encouraging to see. And so when people ask me, I've been in small districts, really large districts. I've been in an urban district for a little while, and why I wanted to land here kind of was my last place of service. is that it's kind of the mixture of all the best of what we can have in a community, I think. And so I love this transition has gone so well, and I love the people I've gotten a chance to meet, and it seems like a wonderful place.
Yeah, we chose to come out here. My school originally opened in Wentzville.
Mm-hmm.
I opened a second location out here part-time up at Ultimate Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And the reception from the community when I would offer to, hey, you guys have this event, we'd love to be a part of it. Yeah, we'd love it. It only took me a small amount of time to realize, I was like, I want to move the location just there. Because I realized very quickly I wasn't ready for 2 locations. That was way more than I wanted to take on. I still currently had a day job at that time, but I wanted to come to Troy. And I told my wife, I said, I want to get the school out there, get it established, and then I want to move out there. I want to live in the community. And that's one thing that I think has been awesome is I remember some friends of mine have talked. We grew up in O'Fallon 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And the feel of the events and stuff here reminds us of how it was when we were a kid. You could walk around, Pumpkin Festival, Night of a Thousand Stars, whatever it is, the kids can run around, they can have fun, they can enjoy it, but they'll see the administration from the school, they'll see their teachers, they'll see the people they're with. I don't remember that as a kid, bumping into my teachers' places and having that type of a community. I'll have kids at the school, and one of the parents will be a teacher in the district or have a place in the district, and they're, hey guys, like they're super excited to see the kids, and it's a different feel that we're really blessed to have. And I think it's because a lot of people do choose to be here. They
do. I've seen that. My aunt taught in the schools in Wentzville for all 30 years of her career and retired, and she just passed away last summer. But we talk about the time that she started there, and that was a smaller town then, and how much change has happened. And they're almost as large as the Rockwood School District now, just a couple thousand less. And so you start to see people moving out a little bit further just to kind of have some of that autonomy maybe, or maybe just space.
Yes.
So it seems like the area is becoming more of a bedroom community. But I think you do see that. You've seen some growth here. What comes with that is that people are coming here looking for a certain thing, which is interesting.
No, and I completely agree with you. A friend of mine, we were hosting kickboxing tournaments, and he had one the Casa Loma Ballroom.
Oh yeah, sure.
And everybody was like, no. We're not going. And I tried to explain to him, I was like, most people that have come out here to get away from downtown St. Louis or North County.
Oh, sure.
They have come out here for a reason. I said, most parents were like, no, I'm good. And he was confused on it. I was like, I'm just saying, because I always brought a big group. I was like, most of it, like I went, but when people were like, I was like, I completely understand, because it was definitely, we were leaving that night. My instructor's like, oh, me and Mom just go walk a couple streets up. I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to get in the truck and I will drive you. She's like, why? I was like, just don't ask. Get in the truck. You're not walking around. It's 10:30 at night. I was like, I don't want to come to your funeral. But people have chosen to come out here. We moved from Breckenridge Hills when I was about a year old to O'Fallon because my father was worked at GM plant. I would have been 4th generation GM if I would have went to work there. My father didn't want me working there. He wanted me, I think, always had that entrepreneurial bug, but never pursued it. So he always pushed me. He's like, just work for yourself. Don't have a boss. He goes, I got locked into a job, made really good money, hated every day going to work. I don't want to see you do that. But that's why we came out. And so I got to see Wentzville grow. And then now seeing that same type of growth and the same things being put into place to now see Troy grow even larger, and Lincoln County in general with the water plants and different things that's going on to grow the community is great.
What comes with that growth come other, I think, good things sometimes if we can capitalize on it. One of the things that I've identified coming into the district and talking with people, there seems to be a lot of support for our military here, going to the Veterans Coffee Talk and just seeing the collaboration that happens and all of the support for folks who serve. And looking at our high school and we talked a little bit about junior ROTC before, and how sometimes that can be a place for kids to connect, and talk with Brian Brown, the principal at the high school here. And we started doing some work with staff, helping them to understand what a junior ROTC program could look like. We went and looked at Marquette, looked at Lafayette, went down to Ozark, which has an exemplary program down there. Took some staff members and some board members. And so we were talking with Big Army about, because they fund this, they help fund it. Locally, you have to fund half of it. And there are 300 school districts on the order of merit list waiting for the next opening for them to be able to fund. And we brought folks here to talk with us a little bit and spent some time with us. And lo and behold, after lots of letters of support from people in our community here, from state and even federal public servants letters of support for us to start a junior ROTC program. We've been elevated, we've just found out, to the top of that list of 300 school districts from a 10-state area. And a lot of it was because of what this community, the potential that is here in this community, what they see as the potential to support a program like that. They see the growth, they see the community, they see the collegial interactions that people have, and the support that we could find here. And so they're actually coming this week. I think tomorrow is the day to give us the final okay, and then we'll start recruiting for instructors and getting a program going at our high school. But that said, is the nature and the characteristics of this community that you described are something that is, I think, beneficial, and people want to be a part of that. And so it's kind of neat to see that happen.
Well, and it affects business all the way around. When Julie Rogers was on, we discussed that and how it affects bigger businesses coming. She goes, you wouldn't believe that the questionnaires they get, it does revolve around a lot of that. What type of community sport? How do the small businesses do? And I was blown away because I never would have thought that was part of it. So with that program coming, what all does that entail? Because I think that's a great idea.
Well, I think, first of all, we did a survey with our students to find out levels of interest and what the Army, or if you do an Air Force program, any of the services will want. I know for sure within Army and Air Force, they want to have at least 100 students eventually that's in the program, and they'll give you some time to build up. And we already had over that many that have expressed interest.
I was just saying, I was like, that doesn't sound like a hard number to hit.
This is the 6th largest high school in Missouri. Did you know that? So it's not hard to find people that might have interest, and that's without having a lot of understanding about what it is. And so now that they're starting to build course interests and things, they're explaining more to students about what is potentially possible here. But the most important piece is finding the right instructors. So I have to find people that have served in the military at least 10 years. It used to be you had to be retired, and now they're allowing people that have served 10 years. I got to find an officer, somebody who's captain or above, and then I got to find a senior NCO, non-commissioned officer, that's at least E7 or above. And so we'll have 2 instructors, and those guys will be, or ladies, will be helping us in building the program. Part of the reason of going out to some of these exemplary programs in the state is also to help facilitate kind of a network. So the Ozark, Missouri program is one of the top in the country. I think they have enough students to support like 5 instructors.
Wow.
And that school is a little bit smaller than ours as far as student population. They're pretty close to our size. And so we learned a lot about the structure and how they set up their program there, doing everything from focusing on drill and ceremony, doing things with drones with kids, teaching them about target, practicing with whether it's archery or using the Olympic style shooting sort of things, and how you would set up the structure to support the classes, where you learn a lot about leadership development, about whether or not somebody wants to go in the military or not. A junior ROTC program can be a great place for people to find connection, but also for personal development. And so learning about what some of those components are. We had the experience with my own son going through the junior ROTC program at Lafayette, and then my younger son went through ROTC at Rolla. So I've learned a little bit about it as a parent. What are the things I thought was beneficial for our kids and their own personal development. But I see that there's an opportunity here for kids, young men and young women in our school, that could have a place to go connect and build some of those skills and find a home. So the more of these kind of groups that we can have where kids find a home, we know that it improves attendance, it improves student achievement because they're there and they're more engaged in school. And so that was an initial thing that I noticed that could be a fit here. And it seems like it's starting to take off, and I can't wait to get it implemented.
That's awesome. I think that's a great idea, because I've talked with so many of the teens, and I go around to the schools, and the school district's been great about promoting the trade schools and other options other than going to college.
Sure.
But that was kind of a missing piece when you started talking about it. I got thinking about it. I'm like, wow, we really don't have recruiters off. We don't offer anything for the young men and women that are wanting that, because there is a lot of times I'll be at New Horizons speaking, and a lot of them, what's your aspirations after us? There's a lot of military reserves, people wanting to look at some other options than your standard college, or even going into a trade position. That really seems like a nice piece of that puzzle to fit in there to help the youth, because there are so many that you meet at that high school age that they don't know. They don't have the guidance at home. Well, where are they going to get it? Well, that's where you guys come in, and offering those things is huge.
When you think about it, we've seen a huge change just in my lifetime. I think when I was a young man, the majority of people that served in public office, not everybody, but a majority of people you'd come across had some experience serving in the military, or you at least knew people who served in the military. Nowadays, I went and talked to the high school students about this when I was over there at Veterans Day to speak, and it's becoming less and less possible that some people might even know a veteran or somebody who has served, and so then vis-a-vis may not know about military service and options that are available out there, and it doesn't take long to start thinking about, I wonder what people in Israel are thinking or Ukraine are thinking, and how easy freedom becomes kind of an accepted thing, and not realizing that it's something that has to be protected. And we have and there are some great skills that are developed, I think, as we go through a life of service, and the military is one of those areas. And I think it's just important for our kids to know about it. And so I think there are great opportunities for kids who may not have an idea of what they want to do after high school, and they figure it out. Maybe they have the GI Bill if they want to come back and learn something. Or those that do want to go to college but may not have the resources.
Yes.
My middle son, he had resources, but he was accepted and attended and graduated from West Point. Wow. And so his whole college was paid for. My other son went through ROTC. His whole college at Rolla was paid for, and he has some service requirement, obviously. I had the GI Bill, which helped. And so it can be another one of those things that removes barriers for kids. But even, like I say, even if it's not something that they want to go into, I think the idea of a junior ROTC program really does help build an awareness for folks.
Well, it builds the awareness. It brings in discipline for kids that are going to need it. There's so many aspects of that. But again, it's now you're not just over here at the trades or with the kids that are planning to go to college. I always address that with my teen instructors. What are you planning to do later? Is this something you want to do? That's why we had our seminar this weekend with the people, the stunt coordinators from Cobra Kai, because they were showing them that you could take your martial arts and you can apply that into the movies. Because when I was a kid, it was, well, what do you do after you train for 20 years? Well, you open a school and teach, or you talk about it at your other job about how you did karate for 20 years. There wasn't, the options weren't visible. And if people like what they're doing by giving back and showing that to people, like what you guys are doing, but it also shows that it's great that positions change, because the previous, with Dr. Penny, he was on the podcast. We talked all about the trade schools, different things, bringing in ranking. Now, your passion with military service and seeing that piece missing. Now, that's another great opportunity for the kids. It just shows how sometimes when people see change, like you're him retiring, you coming in, oh no, it's new, it's different. They may worry, but wow, now look at this great program. It's huge.
I think it's important to hear from people and what their interests are, and of course you mentioned the trades. We need to be doing more to support that. And I think I can think of my nephew who came up National Merit Scholar, ended up choosing a different path, went through Rankin, and learned how to weld and use that as a catalyst to move him into HVAC. And eventually he was running HVAC for MasterCard down here just south of us and doing a great job supporting his family. I think there are many, many opportunities. When I was at Bowling Green, we'd have students go to the Pike Lincoln Tech School and learn a welding trade or learn diesel mechanics and come out and do very well, or the nursing program there. There's so many great programs at that school. And so I think it's important for our kids to know about all of those things. Many of us, like me, knew it. We kind of went into what our parents went into. And I think sometimes for people to break the mold, it's important to learn about these other pieces. And that's why our counselors do such an important job in helping develop a plan with kids. And the more eggs we can put in that basket of ideas and options like this junior ROTC program will be, I think the better.
Well, and it gives everybody an option. Like you said, I knew what I wanted. I started martial arts when I was 10. I did not ever want to stop. I had 4th grade, 5th grade, something like that. I wrote like a letter to myself. It was, what are you going to do? You grow up, I'm going to teach martial arts. Like I knew, and I knew. My dad always jokes. My buddy Matt used to talk about being a fighter pilot for the Navy. Matt's went on to do that. He went on to do that and even bigger things. Yeah, he graduated Annapolis. He went the whole nine. His coolest thing I ever seen him put, he put up a Snapchat one time where it showed your speed, and it was, I don't know how low he was in the desert, but he was in a fighter jet. I was like, that's got to be the coolest thing to hit the internet, man. I hate to tell you that because you're, an exceptional person, but that's the coolest thing in my book you've done.
It's open.
But we made that decision as a kid. But then when I meet some of these young people that don't have a clue and they're not getting the guidance from mom and dad, that's great to have those options for them. Looking back when I was in school, I remember some friends of mine went to tech school in St. Charles. Some people went to Rankin. If you wanted auto mechanics, some of my buddies went to Rankin, but there was also
with the community college there. They have some.
They had something. I can't remember where the guys went, but it was a very small group. They leave school early. They go there. They were always horsing around. It was almost like, oh, you're going to go. It wasn't looked at now like, hey, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of people. When I go in and work with the trades programs at the high school, one of the things that Mr. Gifford has me talk about is the money you can make with it and how you can structure businesses. To teach these young people, you don't have to pick just what's on YouTube. Like there are other things out there. So that's a really cool program. I'm excited for that because I've had so many conversations with young people in the district that are interested. And I'm like, oh, well, what have you, and they really don't have an answer past. That's what they want to do. They listened to a cool podcast or they saw something on TV and that's where they want to go, but there's no line there to kind of take them.
One connection between some of these programs we've talked about is some of the hands-on component and actually being involved. A former student of mine runs the American Welding Academy down in Union, Missouri. He was in my band. This is when he was in high school. And he said, he told me when I saw him out here recruiting students for his welding program, I asked him about his experiences and if he's reflected back. He said, there were 2 classes in my high school where I didn't get in trouble. He said he was a drummer.
Yes.
So it was in band and in my ag classes because I got to put my hands on. And so it made me really kind of rethink some things. And I've always been very passionate about project-based learning where kids are creating something, maybe getting some feedback, going back to the drawing board, making adjustments, much more meaningful to me than filling out papers on a packet or what have you. And I, as a young man, I always felt like those are the experiences I remember.
Yes.
And when I talked with the teachers at the beginning of the school year, I asked them, I said, as we reflect and begin to start the year, think about those teachers that made a difference on you. And what do you remember? And so many of them came up and talked to me and shared with me. It were hands-on type learning activities, and others that were just very engaging and thought-provoking sorts of interactions. And so, the more we can find that engages kids in something that's of an interest of theirs, I think the better we are. And so I thought that was a neat connection to what you were sharing right there.
Well, and that's something too. So when I was in high school, I showed an interest in education. Lindenwood, as a junior in high school, offered me an excellent deal to go to college there, even though I did not have very good grades, but because they wanted male teachers.
Sure.
But I knew even then, that the teachers I had that made that difference, I couldn't be that and teach martial arts. And so my goal was then what can I do with the martial arts? But I asked myself that too when doing it, what was it those teachers did? And again, they're the ones that are thought-provoking, the ones that were outside the box, the ones that did things a little differently or gave a little grace. I laugh, I talk to my students, about their grades and stuff. And I have several of them that are over at high school that are exemplary students, very, very smart. Madeline O'Brien was up at the school last night. She's been with me for years. I believe she's first or second in her class at the high school. And I talk to them about grades and stuff. And I tell them, I only got out of school because I had some teachers that seen something in me that allowed me a little grace on stuff. Because when I look back at stuff I did, I'm like, wow. So I've always kind of hoped that in some passing and in some way, my stuff on social media or my websites or whatever comes through, because I don't always, know their names anymore or remember or even knew their first names to even go out and find them. I always hope that maybe it comes across their desk where they see it and they're like, remember him. Cool. He's went on to do some good things. That's great. I feel good about those C's that I let him have when I should have kicked him out of class or, the different things that they let me slide on. And I try to remember that with my students. There's times when you're working with people that let them slide. Maybe you got to see that potential element. And the school district has been so good about that. When I talk to so many teachers, they are passionate about it.
Oh, sure.
If they were just there for the money, they could go to other districts. They could go other places. They could do other jobs. But they are so passionate about connecting with everyone.
I think it's all about planting seeds. I think all of us develop in different ways at different times. And sometimes we don't realize the impact that seed will have down the road. And it's fun to circle back with kids and find out what it is that was meaningful for them. We've been having some great conversations with some of these amazing staff members about what we can do to help upgrade their learning environment to better support the kind of learning that our students are needing now.
Yes.
When especially if you look at our high school area, we've got buildings that aren't crazy old, but they were developed in a time, classrooms developed in a time when we weren't doing some of the things that maybe we're doing now with some of the hands-on learning things that we're trying to do in the sciences and with culinary arts, or with all of these different areas within the STEM programs that we're doing. And now that we're looking at a junior ROTC program, what's some space going to need to look like to support that? Yes. And so I know you talked with Audrey a little bit about our bond issue that we're yes. trying to address some of the space needs, but it's been fun to have conversations and have Dr. Briscoe and Dr. Culberson to have conversations with teachers about what it is they envision to really make it to where they can further engage students in their classroom even better. And so it's been exciting to see about some of the things that we might be able to do with expanding the 9th grade center and remodeling the high school, Torrey Buchanan current high school, and seeing what those might look like to help foster environments where students can flourish. I mean, the learning environment has a lot to do with what we're able to do in the classroom. And so you want to be able to have the space to be able to do what we want to do well.
Well, and children are learning differently nowadays. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's not the same. I recently started working with a coaching program for a Taekwondo school because mm-hmm. I'm like, I've been doing this a long time.
Sure.
These kids aren't learning the same way. The same way I taught something 10 years ago is not working. Mm-hmm. They're not grasping it. I'm flustering myself. I'm flustering the kids. I'm missing something here and I didn't understand it. They are learning different with screens, with just everything the kids are introduced to. In general, it's just a completely different world, and it's not going to slow down. Mm-hmm. It's going to keep advancing and keep advancing and keep advancing. So keeping up with the new ways to activate their brain and keep mm-hmm. them engaged. I mean, yeah, like you said, the high school's not that old, but mm-hmm. as fast as everything's growing, it probably is considered that.
It's about shaping and helping students and supporting families to build habits of mind, the questioning, mm-hmm. the being discerning when it comes to, there's so much available information out there, and helping to identify what's credible and what's not, and what skill or what piece of information or what tool do I need, and that helps. It's critical thinking, it's problem solving, it's yes. it's being creative, and I think fostering those skills, things like collaboration, in communication, those are all pieces that come together that are what are the tools that we need in our toolbox to address even some of those challenges that our kids are gonna find when they graduate. Maybe even some challenges that we don't even know yet today. We hear yes. about new advances in AI and new advances in technology, and our military just trying to stay ahead of it. Yes. The Army just finally a few years ago developed a cyber branch, and they're trying to play catch up. Yes. But I think it's important for us to think about what are some of those new things that we might need to be developing the skills in order to be able to engage with to be successful.
Well, and the critical thinking I've noticed is huge mm-hmm. to work with the kids on, because they have all that access to information and everything. I'll have mm-hmm. my son will ask me a question. I'll ask him a question back, and he's mm-hmm. like, Mike, don't go to your tablet. Don't ask me. And I'll get flustered with him sometimes. I'm like, think through the problem, because there is such just information coming at us every way. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's it. No, and I've heard that too. So what martial arts are familiar with patterns, martial yes. art patterns. I notice kids struggle to learn those more because they're not learning things in a sequence. We don't remember phone numbers. Sure. We don't have to remember that stuff anymore. It's all for us.
Yes.
And that was one of the things we approached. How can we adjust this and modernize it so they're getting the benefits? Because teaching a 6-year-old, I had many students myself learned all that stuff at a very young age. It is much harder for them to grasp those type of things these days. Mm-hmm. And the critical thinking is another one, because that access to information. So I could see on the teaching point with that volume of students and staff and faculty, everything, that's probably changing by the month for you guys. Because boom, something new happens. Everybody's kind of excited about it. Well, you guys have to now address it. Yeah, that's wild.
Well, I think what's unique about this, and I was so glad to hear you say that you didn't steal your kids' struggle. You were asking them questions and made them come up with other answers to questions and guiding them along. And sometimes if we're not careful, we steal their struggle and get the answer really quickly. And it's the grappling where we grow. It's in that tension right there. And so we have to make sure that we provide opportunities, whether it's through questioning or, like you said, sequential things. We're building from one thing to the next where people have that tension.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes things come too easy if we're not careful. And I think we benefit as people, as a person, with that kind of endurance development. And we need that to be able to be successful.
Very true. And one of my things with my kids, I tell them all the time, like, listen, I've got a lot on my brain. I can't figure your questions out for you. You're going to do it. And they'll have them like, no, you can huff all you want. My brain's tired today. I've had a lot going. But I also explain to them, and I'm big with this on my students, like, I've never seen an interview or anything with anybody that is very successful that'll be like, oh yeah, it was always easy. I always had the answer. No, normally they've went through crazy hard times that they came out of with that resilience. And when I, for example, go out and talk to, I was out at Winfield the other day and spoke to a football team with a program they got, and we were discussing like the mark they're going to make on the middle school boys that they're mentoring. I've been kind of helping prep them and get them ready to meet the middle school boys. And it's almost like you're going to make a mark. You're going to leave. There's that struggle that you guys are going to bond, come up with that bond. People need that to grow.
This was coming up top of mind with me just even a couple of weeks ago. Again, I got invited to go speak with some of our ninth graders. Oh, did you? I guess they were taking pictures. I guess they're out there. But I just enjoyed the conversation. And they were being identified for showing different character attributes. And what I wanted to share with them is I remembered, my first interaction with learning about what character is, and the things that make up character, things like grit and perseverance, things about being flexible and things like being cooperative and all those little things. My high school principal said something about what you do when nobody's watching.
Yes.
And some of those little small little decisions along the way, and the importance of making good decisions as a ninth grader, because that's a huge kind of gateway. In ninth grade, you can make decisions that really have an impact on the rest of your life. Who you choose
you're just getting to that age.
With. Yes, and it was a great conversation, but it reminded me of the importance of forming those skills and what do we need to be doing in our education environment to help build grit and perseverance and tenacity, and not willing to give up easy, and try multiple paths. And to me, project-based learning does that. You grappling with the problem, and there may be two students that come up with different solutions for that problem, and that's okay, because we've had to think creatively. That whole design thinking, using the creative aspects of our mind. When you go out and you look at two spatulas you're going to purchase, and the function, and you have form. You heard about form versus function.
Yes.
They both probably function the same way, but you might pick the one that has a design concept. So it's important that we're thinking about, are we teaching design? Are we teaching kids to think outside the box and have a multiple solutions to a problem, and what might actually be more successful? And so it's the critical thinking. It's making sure that we're grappling with all sorts of aspects.
That's amazing. What are some big things that you guys maybe see kind of coming up over the next year, or even further down? I know Audrey and I talked about the bond issue coming up.
Well, I'm excited about that. I know in Hawk Point, we don't have a school that has a secure entrance there. Yes. The whole safety piece. We don't have a safe place. Bona fide safe place to shelter when there's a storm. So that's top of my mind, when I go out there. And so I'm excited about the adjustments that are going to be made to that school. The library is not ADA compliant, and so now we'll have a library that kids can access even if they have a disability and so forth. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about of course, the 9 through 12 expansion is the biggest part of this, and making sure that we have spaces that support our program. But there's some safety components there as well that we're trying to address. We're working on trying to make sure that we have a safe environment for kids to learn, because we know that if kids come to school and don't feel safe, it's hard for them to learn. If we want to feel like we're always talking about speaking of grappling with the problem and what other things that we can do to fix this, the board has supported a reorganization plan for central office a little bit too, and so we've kind of shuffled some positions and with some retirements that have helped us to be able to do that. We've added a position of a safety coordinator to kind of be a person that would be our liaison, working with law enforcement, working with EMS, and with fire. First responders, but also coordinating our SROs in our district and making sure that we have plans that we fully develop and we practice and it's consistent in every school. But also it's working with our counselors and making sure that we have the mental health supports that are there for kids and are making ourselves aware of needs that might come up. And so that's an important piece as we go into next year. And we're putting some resources down closer to teachers. We don't really have a curriculum management plan where we're able to do program evaluations and really look at our curriculum to make sure there aren't gaps and overlaps in our scope and sequence of our learning activities. And so we were able to add some positions that'll be supportive for our teachers so that they can kind of lead that work with them and allow our coaches to be able to really focus on that with instructional coaches with our teachers. And so I'm excited about putting resources closer to teachers and closer to looking at school safety, because those are important passions of mine. And so our board has been supportive of that. But we've got, Troy Middle School, Troy Middle School and Hawk Point are the two oldest buildings in the district. And so we've got, Troy Middle School needs a roof. You wouldn't think how
that's
expensive.
A big roof.
It is a big roof.
That's a big one.
So we've got some work that we need to do there. We've got some flooring at a couple of elementary schools, Boone and Lincoln, that we need to take a look at in the gym to make the flooring a little more sanitary. And so when you have a carpeted floor in a gym, sometimes all sorts of things happen with some little things like that. But we have some HVAC upgrades that we need to be able to do. So it gets costly as you start.
Very much.
And then as our growth happens, we need to be looking at land.
Yes.
It may be down the road that we have to have a third middle school. We just opened, our 14th school this year with Choice South Elementary. Yes. I think that's gone very well. People are happy about that. It's helped to balance out our elementaries a little bit, but still we have growth happening and coming this way. And both of our middle schools are over 700 students at each one. That was the size of most of our middle schools when I was in Rockwood. So we see the growth coming from the lower grades. So we need to be prepared for that. Not making any more land these days. Yeah. And it's not getting any cheaper, it seems, either. And so,
I don't think anything's going to get any cheaper.
So we have to think about that as well. And so, what's great about this particular bond issue is that we're doing it as a no tax rate increase. I know there's not a huge stomach for raising people's taxes, and so I'm not advocating for us to do that. With our growth and our assessed valuation, it has increased our bond capacity here. And so we're able to do this without raising people's tax rates. That's a very important piece to this. And so I think that we can accomplish quite a bit with being conservative and being resourceful. Some people will ask, why aren't we doing the second high school right now? That would require us to raise our tax rate if we did it right now, because you have to do so much more, to have parity at both high schools. And then it's an operation levy increase because you have to hire staff members to fill that out, because you have to have 2 calculus teachers and 2 physics teachers.
People don't always understand that part of it.
So I think this is a conservative way of doing it gradually, to where we don't have to raise taxes. We can do it slow increments to make sure we do it well. And then I still believe that we're going to be in a place a few years down the road we'll be looking at a second high school, but I think our assessed evaluation will continue growing the way it has, in a way that could support that with very little impact on the tax rate. So that's our goal, and I'm excited about that. And coming from Bowling Green, we had passed 2 bond issues. In the time I was there, they had not passed one in 50 years before I got there. 50 years.
Wow, that's a
so
long time.
I wasn't quite 50 yet when I went there, and so I was like older than me. It was hard to really fathom, and so we had to build some trust. And that last bond issue we passed there was a no tax rate increase. We built a new early childhood center, and so these things can happen, but it takes time, and you have to plan. And so it's been exciting to be involved in communications with our community about this work. And of course, Audrey's going to be involved quite a bit in the coming months, helping to get the word out. I think we have like 50 meetings set up with different community groups. Yes, we've started the Sips with the Soup, and so people can come in and ask questions and visit with me, because I think communication like this is best when it's one-on-one.
Then that was what I was going to ask next. For people wanting to stay up to date on this stuff,
sure.
What are ways that they can do that other than just waiting to see what they stumble across on social media?
On the
What is a way
website
for
or
someone
what
that
have you.
is interested?
Sure. Well, our sips with the soup, we have them every quarter, and we put when we have one, we put it out there so that people know about it on social media and stuff. But it's an opportunity at 7 in the morning and at 7 in the evening. People can come to the Powell Library, and we just have a conversation.
Awesome.
We talk about some of the updates that are coming. Obviously, we're going to be putting videos out and things on social media.
Exactly.
But the next one that's coming up, it's in February. I think it's the first Monday in February. But let me just double check to make sure I'm not telling somebody and sending someone the wrong. Yes, it's February the 3rd is our next one. So 7
Excellent.
in the morning at Powell Memorial Library and 7 p.m. as well. You can come and have a beverage and a school safe beverage and something
Excellent.
sweet to eat, and we just sit around and have a nice conversation. We've had people come from all walks of life in our community. We've had people that are that have kids in school. We have some that haven't had kids in school for a while. We have some that come that have never had kids in school.
Yeah.
We have public servants that come, and it's just a nice conversation. We have some former staff members, retirees in the district. It's been a good way for me to get to know people, but also find out what people are passionate about.
Yes.
Because that's important to me.
That's excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
Sure.
I think that's great. It gives people tons of information on what's going on. And
Sure.
I love the idea where they can come in and sit and talk with you guys, because it seems that one person says this, and it turns into something that isn't actually the issue or wasn't actually addressed, where if they have that open door where they can come in and speak, then they need to go do it. That's a great thing for everyone. So thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.